Everyone in New York's high society knew Jamie Sterling. He was the architect of the decade, the man who built skylines. But nobody, absolutely nobody, knew the woman standing in his shadow. They called her Mouse. They called her the Plain Jane. Even Jamie treated her like a piece of furniture in his grand design. He thought he had married a simple, penniless orphan from the Midwest who would never question him. He was wrong, dead wrong, because the woman he was about to divorce for a younger model wasn't just Jordan Sterling. She was hiding a name that could buy and sell his entire existence before breakfast. And when she finally signed the divorce papers, she didn't use his last name. She used hers, and the room went silent. The charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art was the kind of event where the air conditioning smelled like expensive perfume and the champagne cost more than a mid-sized sedan. Jordan Sterling stood near a faux Greek column, clutching a clutch that was at least 3 seasons old. She was wearing beige. She always wore beige, or gray, or a soft, apologetic blue. It was Jamie's preference. "You don't want to clash with me, darling," he had told her in the limo ride over. "Tonight is about the Sterling Tower project. I need to be the sun. You're the atmosphere. Just exist, quietly." So, Jordan existed, quietly. At 34, Jordan possessed a quiet, classical beauty that was entirely lost on the modern gaze. She had sharp cheekbones and eyes the color of stormy seawater, but she hid them behind wire-rimmed glasses and hair pulled back into a severe, sensible bun. 10 feet away, Jamie Sterling was holding court. He was 42, handsome in a way that suggested he spent a lot of money to look like he didn't care. He was laughing at a joke made by Lydia Banks, a 24-year-old interior designer who had been consulting on his late nights for the past 6 months. Jordan watched Lydia place a manicured hand on Jamie's forearm. She watched Jamie lean in, his body language excluding the rest of the room, excluding his wife. "Sad, isn't it?" Jordan jumped slightly. A woman had drifted up beside her. It was Beatrice Caldwell, the wife of a banking mogul. Beatrice was known for 2 things: her diamond collection and her inability to keep a secret. "What is?" Jordan asked, her voice soft. "The way he parades her around," Beatrice whispered, sipping her drink. "Everyone knows, dear. Jamie and the little decorator. I heard he bought her a condo in Soho last week, under the corporate account, of course." Jordan felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. She knew about Lydia. She knew about the late nights. She even knew about the condo. She handled the household finances. Though Jamie thought his accountant, a man named delicately Mr. Henderson, did all the heavy lifting. Jamie didn't know that Mr. Henderson had been emailing Jordan the real ledgers for 3 years because he felt sorry for her. "Jamie is busy," Jordan said, deflecting. Beatrice sneered. "He's reckless. You know, they say he's leveraged everything for this new skyscraper project, the Sterling Spire. If the investors pull out, he's finished. But I suppose you wouldn't know about the business side of things, would you? You're just, well, you're Jordan. Just Jordan." That was the narrative. Jordan the orphan. Jordan the former librarian he'd met in a dusty archive in Chicago while researching historic zoning laws. He had swept her off her feet, or so it seemed. In reality, he had needed a wife who wouldn't ask questions, wouldn't demand the spotlight, and would look good on a tax return. Jamie finally broke away from Lydia and strode over to Jordan, his smile tight and practiced. "Jordan, stop lurking," he hissed under his breath, grabbing her elbow with a grip that was just shy of painful. "Judge Harrison is coming over. He's the head of the zoning board. Smile. Nod. Do not speak unless asked a direct question about, I don't know, baking or gardening." "I don't garden, Jamie," Jordan said. "Then start," he snapped. Judge Harrison, a portly man with a red face and a reputation for being impossible to bribe, approached them. "Jamie," the judge boomed, "and this must be the little lady." "This is Jordan," Jamie said, his tone dismissing her, even as he introduced her. "Charmed," the judge said, barely looking at her. "Jamie, I've been looking at the proposals for the spire. There's a problem. The land you want to build on the old waterfront district, we've found an issue with the deed." Apparently, the original ownership is tied up in a blind trust from the 1920s, the Blackwood Trust. Ever heard of it? Jamie waved a hand dismissively. Some defunct old money nonsense. My lawyers are handling it. We'll bulldoze through the red tape. Careful, the judge warned. The Blackwoods were formidable. They vanished from the social scene 50 years ago, but their assets? They didn't vanish. They're just sleeping. If there's an heir, Jamie, you can't build. There is no heir, Jamie said arrogantly. And if there is, I'll buy them out. Everyone has a price. Jordan took a sip of her sparkling water. Her hand didn't shake. Not even a little. Actually, Jordan said. Both men stopped. Jamie looked at her with pure annoyance. What? Jamie barked. The Blackwood Trust, Jordan said, her voice clear, losing the soft wobble she usually used around Jamie. It requires a unanimous vote from the Board of Trustees to sell any land. It's in the original 1924 charter, paragraph 4, section B. Silence. Jamie laughed, a nervous, barking sound. My wife? She reads a lot. Trivia. She loves trivia. Judge Harrison looked at Jordan with new interest. She's right, actually. How did you know that, Mrs. Sterling? I must have read it in Jamie's papers. Jordan lowered her eyes, stepping back into the role of the mouse. Right, Jamie said, steering the judge away. She's always snooping. Come, Judge, let me buy you a drink. They walked away, leaving Jordan alone again. But this time, she wasn't looking at the floor. She was looking at the back of Jamie's head with a gaze that could have cut glass. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a phone. It was an old model, or so it looked. She tapped a secure app that Jamie didn't know existed. She typed a single message, Initiate Phase 2. He's proceeding with the build. A moment later, a reply came back. Acknowledged, Miss Blackwood. Jordan deleted the message, adjusted her glasses, and went back to being invisible. 3 weeks later, the Sterling household was a war zone. They lived in a penthouse on Park Avenue, a glass and steel box that Jamie called a masterpiece and Jordan called a fishbowl. It was cold, modern, and utterly devoid of warmth. Jamie was pacing the living room, throwing a crystal tumbler of scotch into the fireplace. It shattered, amber liquid hissing against the gas flames. They froze the accounts, he screamed. How can they freeze the operating accounts? Jordan sat on the white leather sofa, knitting. She was making a scarf. It was gray. Who froze them, Jamie? She asked calmly. The bank. Global Horizons Bank, Jamie roared. I went to pay the contractors for the foundation work, and the transfer was blocked. Compliance review, they said. Irregularities in spousal assets, they said. He spun on her, his face twisted with rage. This is your fault. Jordan paused her knitting. My fault? Jamie, I have a debit card with a $2,000 limit. How is this my fault? Because you didn't sign the renewal on the joint liability clause last week. I left it on the counter. I did sign it, Jordan said. I left it on your desk, next to the bracelet you bought for Lydia. The air left the room. Jamie froze. He looked at Jordan, really looked at her, for the first time in months. He didn't look guilty. He looked annoyed that he'd been caught. Don't be dramatic, Jordan, he scoffed. Lydia is a colleague. That was a bonus. A Cartier love bracelet is a bonus? Jordan asked. For an interior designer, she brings value to the company. Something you wouldn't understand, Jamie sneered, buttoning his jacket. Look, I don't have time for your jealousy. I have to fix this financial mess. I'm meeting with a private equity firm tonight, Vanguard Capital. They're interested in a buyout of the debt. Vanguard Capital? Jordan asked. Jamie, be careful. They're known for hostile takeovers. They strip companies for parts. I know what I'm doing, he shouted. I built this empire. I am Jamie Sterling. I don't need advice from a woman who thinks networking is a book club. He grabbed his keys. I won't be home tonight. I'm staying at the club. Don't wait up. He slammed the door so hard the walls shook. Jordan sat in the silence for a long moment. Then, she set down her knitting. She stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city. She wasn't angry. She was past anger. She was executing a protocol. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. This is Arthur Penhaligon, a crisp British voice answered. Arthur was the senior partner at Penhaligon, Witts and Moore, the most terrifying law firm in London. Arthur, it's Jordan, she said. The tone on the other end changed instantly. It went from professional to deeply respectful. Lady Jordan, it is good to hear your voice. Has the situation escalated? He's going to Vanguard Capital, Jordan said. Predictable, Arthur sighed. Vanguard is a shell company for the Blackwood Trust, as you know. He's walking right into the lion's mouth. I want the meeting to go ahead, Jordan said. Let him sign the papers. Let him leverage the penthouse, the cars, the summer home in the Hamptons. Let him leverage everything. Jordan, Arthur said gently, if he does that, you'll lose your home. Technically, half of those assets are yours by marriage. I don't care about the house, Arthur. It's cold and it echoes, Jordan said. I want him to have nothing left. When I leave him, I want him to understand exactly who was holding him up all these years. Very well, the board is ready, but there is one complication. What is it? Lydia Banks, Arthur said. She's pregnant. Jordan felt the wind knocked out of her. She closed her eyes, pressing her forehead against the cold glass of the window. She had wanted children, desperately, but Jamie had always said no. Children are distractions, Jordan. They ruin the aesthetic. Are you sure? Jordan whispered. Our private investigator confirmed it this morning. She was seen leaving a clinic in Upper East Side. She's keeping it. And she plans to announce it at the Sterling Company Gala next Saturday. She thinks that once she's carrying the Sterling heir, you'll be out of the picture for good. Jordan opened her eyes. The sadness was gone, replaced by something much colder, something ancient. Next Saturday, Jordan repeated. The gala. Yes, Jamie is planning to unveil the model of the spire. It's supposed to be his triumph. It won't be, Jordan said. Arthur, prepare the file. The red file. Bring it to New York. I'm done playing the mouse. Jordan, are you going to reveal yourself? Not just myself, Jordan said. I'm going to introduce them to the family. All of us. She hung up. Jordan walked into the master bedroom. She went to the walk-in closet. Jamie's side was filled with Italian suits, hers with sensible department store wear. She reached up to the highest shelf, behind a stack of winter blankets, and pulled down a small, locked box. She keyed in the code, 1924. Inside lay a passport, a heavy signet ring bearing a crest of a black raven on a silver shield, and a checkbook. The name on the passport didn't say Jordan Sterling. It said Jordan Genevieve Blackwood. She ran her thumb over the gold lettering. The Blackwoods were American royalty. Steel, railroads, shipping. They had retreated from the public eye in the 70 seconds after a kidnapping scare, becoming ghosts. They were the money behind the money. They didn't appear in Forbes because they owned the people in Forbes. And Jordan was the sole heiress. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. The mouse was dead. The lioness was waking up. You want a legacy, Jamie? She whispered to the empty room. I'll give you a legacy. The night of the Sterling Company Gala arrived with the force of a coronation. The venue was the grand ballroom at the plaza, rented out at an expense that made the company accountants sweat. But Jamie Sterling didn't care about costs. Tonight was about perception. Tonight, he would announce that Vanguard Capital had fully funded the Sterling Spire, saving him from ruin. Tonight, he would solidify his legacy. In the master suite of the penthouse, Jamie was fixing his bow tie in the mirror. He looked impeccable in a tuxedo that cost more than most people's college tuition. Jordan, he shouted toward the bathroom. Are you ready? The limo is downstairs. And for God's sake, tell me you're not wearing that gray sack you wore to the charity auction. There was no answer. Jamie checked his watch. Jordan, I swear, if you make me late, I will leave you here. Still silence. He stormed over to the bathroom door and pounded on it. Jordan. The door swung open. The bathroom was empty. The lights were off. Jamie frowned. He walked into the walk-in closet. Empty. Her side of the closet was different. The drab gray suits and beige cardigans were gone. The shelves were bare. On the center island of the closet, A single piece of paper sat under his diamond cufflinks. "I'll meet you there," Jamie scoffed, crumpling the note. Dramatic. Fine. Take a cab. He didn't care. In fact, it was better. It meant he could ride in the limo with Lydia. The gala was in full swing by the time Jamie arrived. He entered with Lydia Banks on his arm. She was glowing, literally and figuratively. She wore a shimmering silver gown that clung to her like a second skin, and she kept resting a hand protectively over her stomach. It was a subtle gesture, but one that the gossip-hungry crowd noticed immediately. "Jamie," Beatrice Caldwell air-kissed him, "and Lydia, you two look radiant." "It's a big night, Beatrice," Lydia cooed, flashing a smile that was all teeth. "We have so much to celebrate." Jamie felt like a king. He worked the room, shaking hands with investors, laughing at jokes he didn't find funny. He spotted the representatives from Vanguard Capital in the corner, two men in dark suits who looked more like undertakers than bankers. He nodded to them. The deal was done. The papers were to be signed on stage at 9 p.m. "Where's the little mouse?" Beatrice asked, looking around. "Did you leave Jordan at home?" "She's coming," Jamie said dismissively. "She's probably stuck in traffic, or she got lost, or maybe she realized she doesn't belong here," Lydia whispered in Jamie's ear, giggling. Suddenly, the hum of conversation in the ballroom died down. It didn't taper off. It was cut, as if someone had severed the audio cable. Heads turned toward the massive double doors at the top of the grand staircase. Jamie turned, annoyed. "Who is making an entrance during my—" The words died in his throat. Standing at the top of the stairs was a woman. But it wasn't the Jordan he knew. The woman was wearing a gown of deep, blood-red velvet. It was strapless, structured, and architectural, a dress that commanded attention. It had a slit that went up to the thigh, revealing a leg that didn't look like it belonged to a librarian. She wore no glasses. Her hair, usually trapped in a severe bun, cascaded in loose, glossy, dark waves over her shoulders. Around her neck was a necklace that made Beatrice Caldwell's diamonds look like costume jewelry. It was a choker of black diamonds, with a single, massive ruby dripping from the center like a drop of fresh blood. It was Jordan, but the posture was wrong. She didn't hunch. She didn't look at the floor. She stood with her chin high, looking down at the crowd with an expression of cool, detached amusement. "My God," someone whispered. Jordan began to descend the stairs. She didn't walk. She glided. Every step was precise. Jamie felt a surge of irrational anger. How dare she? How dare she look like this now? How dare she upstage him? He marched toward the bottom of the stairs to intercept her. "What do you think you're doing?" he hissed, as she reached the bottom step. "You look ridiculous. That dress is too much. You're making a scene." Jordan looked at him. Her eyes were piercing. "Hello, Jamie. You said you wanted me to stop being invisible. Careful what you wish for. Go find a corner and stay there," he snarled. "I have serious business to conduct. Vanguard Capital is here." "I know," Jordan said, a small, terrifying smile playing on her lips. "I wouldn't miss it." Before Jamie could reply, a man stepped out from the crowd and offered Jordan his arm. It was Arthur Penhaligon, the distinguished British lawyer. Jamie knew of him. Everyone in high finance knew of Penhaligon, but he had never been able to afford his rates. "Lady Jordan," Arthur said, his voice carrying in the silent room. "Shall we?" "Thank you, Arthur," Jordan said. She took his arm and walked past Jamie, as if he were a waiter. Lydia scurried over to Jamie's side, her face pale. "Who is that guy? And why is Jordan wearing that?" "I don't know," Jamie muttered, watching his wife move through the crowd. The sea of people parted for her. "I don't know." The dinner was an ordeal. Jamie spent the entire meal watching Jordan. She was seated at the head table, his table, but she wasn't talking to him. She was conversing fluently in French with the ambassador of Morocco to her left and laughing at a story told by the CEO of Vanguard Capital to her right. Since when does she speak French? Jamie thought, stabbing his steak. Lydia was sulking. She had been seated 2 chairs away, and no one was paying attention to her silver dress. The room was obsessed with the lady in red. Finally, the moment arrived. The lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. Jamie stood up, buttoning his jacket. He walked to the podium, adjusting the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice booming, "thank you for coming. Tonight marks a new era for Sterling architecture. Many said the Sterling spire was too ambitious, too costly, but visionaries do not listen to the word no." There was polite applause. "I am proud to announce that we have secured a full partnership with Vanguard Capital. With their backing, the spire will rise." He gestured to the table where the Vanguard executives sat. "I would like to invite Mr. Silas Thorne, senior partner at Vanguard, to join me on stage to sign the official agreement." Silas Thorne, a man with a face like a granite slab, walked up the stairs. He carried a leather portfolio. He placed the documents on the podium. Jamie clicked his gold pen. "Just sign here, Mr. Sterling," Silas said. His voice was dry. "And the transfer of funds will be immediate, as will the transfer of collateral." Of course," Jamie said. He signed his name with a flourish, Jamie Sterling. "And the witness?" Silas asked. "Lydia," Jamie said, smiling at her. "Come up here." Lydia beamed. She waddled slightly, exaggerating her condition, up the stairs. She signed as a witness. "Actually," Silas said, taking the papers back, "we need the co-signatory for the collateral assets. Since the penthouse, the Hamptons estate, and the Sterling Company shares are all listed as marital property." He looked down at the table. "Mrs. Sterling?" Silas called out. The room turned to Jordan. Jamie froze. He had forgotten about that. He had forged her signature on the loan application, but this was the final deed. He needed her to sign now, in front of everyone. He sweated. He leaned into the mic. "My wife trusts my judgment implicitly. Jordan, come up here and make it official." Jordan stood up. The room went quiet again. She walked to the stage, the red dress rustling softly. Arthur Penhaligon walked with her, carrying a briefcase. She climbed the stairs and stood next to Jamie. Up close, he smelled the fear on him. "Sign it, Jordan," he whispered through gritted teeth. "Don't embarrass me." Jordan looked at the document. "This agreement puts up everything we own as collateral against a $300 million loan from Vanguard Capital. Interest rate, 12%. Default clauses, immediate seizure of all assets." She looked at the microphone. She pulled it toward her. "I won't sign this, Jamie," she said clearly. Gasps filled the room. "What?" Jamie hissed, forgetting the mic was hot. "You have to. We're ruined if you don't." "No," Jordan said. "You are ruined if I don't. I am doing just fine." "Jordan, get off the stage," Lydia shrieked, stepping forward. "You're just jealous. You're jealous because Jamie loves me. Because I'm giving him the family you never could," the crowd murmured. The scandal was exploding in real time. Jordan turned to Lydia. Her expression wasn't angry. It was pitying. "Lydia, you are a pawn in a game you don't even know the rules to. Do you really think he loves you? Or does he love that you look good in a brochure?" "He loves me," Lydia cried. "I'm pregnant with his child." The bomb dropped. The audience gasped. Beatrice Caldwell actually dropped her wine glass. Jamie looked victorious. "There. It's out. Yes, she is. And that is why I am building this future. Now, sign the damn paper, Jordan, or I will divorce you and leave you with nothing." Jordan laughed. It was a cold, dark sound. "You can't leave me with nothing, Jamie," she said, "because you never gave me anything. I paid for the penthouse. I paid for the Hamptons house. I paid off your first bankruptcy 4 years ago, using the inheritance you thought I got from a grandmother. You." "What?" Jamie stammered. "You're a librarian." "I was a librarian," Jordan corrected, "because I liked the quiet. But you've made my life very loud, Jamie." She turned to Mr. Silas Thorne of Vanguard Capital. "Mr. Thorne," Jordan said, "who owns Vanguard Capital?" Silas Thorne bowed his head to Jordan. "Vanguard Capital is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Blackwood Family Trust." Jamie blinked. "Blackwood? The trust Judge Harrison mentioned?" "The same," Jordan said. "And who is the sole beneficiary and executing officer of the Blackwood Family Trust?" Silas Thorne looked at Jamie, a cruel smile touching his lips. The executing officer is the woman standing next to you, Mr. Sterling. Mrs. Jordan Blackwood. The silence in the room was absolute. It was heavy, suffocating. Jamie looked at Jordan. He looked at the woman he had ignored, belittled, and cheated on for 7 years. The woman whose last name he had never bothered to investigate, because he assumed she was nobody. You're a Blackwood? He whispered. I am the Blackwood, Jordan said. And Jamie, I'm declining your loan application. She picked up the contract he had just signed, the one where he pledged all his assets to Vanguard. However, she said, since you already signed the collateral agreement with Vanguard, and Vanguard is me, I believe I now own your company. Default Clause 7A, misrepresentation of funds, allows for immediate, accelerated takeover. Arthur Penhaligon stepped forward and opened his briefcase. He pulled out a red folder. Mr. Sterling, Arthur said, you are trespassing on private property. Security will escort you out. You can't do this, Jamie screamed, his face turning purple. I am Jamie Sterling. This is my gala. Actually, Jordan said, leaning into the mic one last time, I paid for the gala. The check cleared this morning. From the Blackwood account, she looked at the security guard standing by the wings. She nodded. 2 massive guards stepped forward and grabbed Jamie by the arms. Jordan, please, Jamie begged, his arrogance crumbling into dust. We can talk about this. The baby. Think of the baby. Jordan looked at Lydia, who was trembling, holding her stomach. I am thinking of the baby, Jordan said. That child deserves better than a father who sees people as assets. She turned her back on him. Get him out of my sight. As Jamie was dragged kicking and screaming from the ballroom, cameras flashing, Jordan stood center stage in her blood-red dress. She adjusted her glasses. No, she wasn't wearing them anymore. She adjusted her diamond necklace. She looked out at the stunned New York elite. Please, she said coolly, enjoy the dessert. I recommend the tart. It's bitter, but sweet. The morning after the gala, Jamie Sterling woke up on a leather sofa in his lawyer's guest office. He wasn't in the penthouse. His keycard had been deactivated before he'd even reached the front door the previous night. He checked his phone. It was blowing up. Number The Invisible Wife was trending globally. Number Sterling Takedown was number 2. Jamie threw the phone across the room. It cracked against the wall. Careful, Jamie, said Garrett Stone, his attorney. Garrett was a man who looked like a shark that had learned to wear a suit. He specialized in high-conflict divorces and reputation laundering. That phone is evidence. She can't do this, Garrett, Jamie yelled, pacing the small room. She defrauded me. She hid her assets. That's entrapment. If I had known she was a Blackwood, I would have. You would have what? Garrett asked, raising an eyebrow. Signed a prenup? Treated her better? The optics are terrible, Jamie. You were caught on 4K video, trying to force her to sign away her fortune while your pregnant mistress watched. You're the villain of the week. I am the victim, Jamie insisted, his eyes manic. She lied for 7 years. That marriage was a sham. I want half, Garrett. The Blackwood fortune is worth billions. I want half of the marital appreciation. That's the law in New York. Garrett tapped his pen on the desk. Normally, yes. But she has better lawyers. Penhaligon is a monster. However, we have one card she doesn't. What? The court of public opinion, Garrett said, a slimy smile spreading across his face. Rich people are hated right now. Secret billionaires lying to their hard-working husbands. That's a narrative we can spin. We paint you as the self-made man who was manipulated by a bored heiress, playing commoner for kicks. And we use the girl, Lydia. She's pregnant. She's young. She's crying. The cameras will love her. We put her on the morning hour tomorrow. We make Jordan Blackwood look like a cold-hearted monster who kicked a pregnant woman onto the street. Jamie nodded slowly. Yes, we destroy her image. If she wants to play dirty, we'll play filthy. 3 days later, the interview aired. Jordan watched it from the boardroom of the Blackwood Foundation, 40 floors above Manhattan. The room was silent. On the massive screen, Lydia Banks was sobbing into a tissue. Jamie sat next to her, holding her hand, looking somber and broken. I just wanted to build a life, Jamie was saying to the host. I built sterling architecture from nothing. Jordan. She watched me struggle. She watched me stay up all night, worrying about payroll, knowing she could have fixed it with a snap of her fingers. Who does that? What kind of sick game was she playing? She mocked my ambition. The camera zoomed in on Lydia. She laughed at me. Lydia wept. She told me my baby was an asset. She threw us out of the gala. I'm scared for my child's future. The host looked sympathetic. A billionaire bully. It's truly shocking. Jordan turned off the TV. Arthur Penhaligon cleared his throat. The stock price of Vanguard has dipped 2%. The public doesn't like the cruel heiress's narrative. We should issue a statement. No, Jordan said. She was wearing a white suit today, sharp and immaculate. Don't interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake. Mistake? Arthur asked. He's winning the sympathy vote. He's desperate, Jordan said. And desperate men get sloppy. Jamie thinks Lydia is on his side. But I know Jamie. He doesn't share the spotlight. How long until he starts treating Lydia like an employee instead of a partner? Jordan stood up and walked to the window. Arthur, hire a private security detail for Lydia Banks. Don't let her know. Just keep an eye on her. When she runs, I want to be the one who catches her. You think she'll run? Jamie is a narcissist, Jordan said. Now that he's lost his money, he needs a punching bag. He can't reach me anymore. So, who is left? 2 weeks passed. The divorce proceedings were ugly. Jamie was demanding $500 million in alimony. Jordan's lawyers were burying him in paperwork. Meanwhile, Jamie's comeback was stalling. No one wanted to hire an architect who was currently suing his ex-wife for $500 million. He was radioactive. The cracks began to show on a Tuesday night in a rented condo in Jersey City, a far cry from the Park Avenue penthouse. Lydia was sitting at the kitchen island, staring at her phone. The comments on her Instagram were vicious. Homewrecker, gold digger, karma. Jamie stormed in, slamming the door. He smelled of cheap whiskey. Why didn't you post the link? He shouted. Lydia flinched. What? The GoFundMe for the legal defense. I told you to post it an hour ago. We need cash flow, Lydia. Garrett's bill is due. I didn't want to, Lydia whispered. It's embarrassing, Jamie. Asking strangers for money? You said you had investors lined up? They bailed because you looked fat on TV, Jamie screamed, throwing his keys on the counter. You were supposed to look fragile. You looked like a cow. Lydia stood up, her hand on her stomach. Don't talk to me like that. I'm carrying your son. Are you? Jamie sneered, stepping closer. Or is it just another bill I have to pay? You know, Claymore developers offered me a consulting gig, but they said I have too much baggage. That's you. You're the baggage. Lydia's eyes filled with tears. This wasn't the charming genius she had fallen for. This was a bitter, broken man looking for someone to blame. I'm leaving, Lydia said, grabbing her purse. I'm going to my sister's. Jamie grabbed her wrist. His grip was hard. You're not going anywhere. You're the only asset I have left. If you leave, the sympathy story dies. You stay here, you smile, and you post that link. Let me go, Lydia screamed. Suddenly, the door burst open. It wasn't the police. It was a man in a black suit, one of the security detail Jordan had hired. He didn't say a word. He just stepped into the room, filling the space with silent menace. Jamie let go of Lydia's wrist, stumbling back. Who the hell are you? Miss Banks, the guard said calmly. There is a car waiting downstairs. You have a meeting. Lydia didn't hesitate. She ran out the door without looking back at Jamie. The car took her to a location she didn't expect. The New York Public Library, the main branch on Fifth Avenue. It was closed for the night, but the side door was open. Lydia walked into the vast, empty reading room. Under the green glow of a desk lamp, Jordan was waiting. Jordan looked up from a book. She didn't look triumphant. She looked tired. Sit down, Lydia, Jordan said gently. Lydia stood shivering in the middle of the room. Are you going to gloat? Tell me you told me so? No, Jordan said. I brought you tea, ginger and lemon, good for morning sickness. She pushed a thermos across the table. Lydia sat down slowly. She took the tea, Her hands were shaking. He's crazy, Jordan. He's obsessed with destroying you. He blames me for everything. I know, Jordan said. That's what he does. He uses people until they break, and then he blames them for being broken. Jordan opened a folder on the table. It was the red file. Lydia, I didn't bring you here just to save you from a domestic dispute. I brought you here because you are in legal danger. Me? Lydia widened her eyes. I didn't do anything. Jamie did, Jordan said. And because you signed as a witness and an officer of his company last month, you are liable. Jordan slid a document across the table. It was a bank transfer record. Jamie didn't just mismanage money, Jordan explained. He was embezzling from the construction loans. He was taking money meant for steel and concrete and funneling it into offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Accounts under the name Lydia B. Consulting. Lydia gasped. I never opened those accounts. He asked for my passport copy months ago for a business trip that never happened. I figured, Jordan said. He set you up, Lydia. If the feds investigate the collapse of the Sterling Spire project, Jamie plans to point the finger at you. He'll say you were the one moving the money. Lydia put her head in her hands and sobbed. I'm going to prison. My baby is going to be born in prison. Jordan reached out and, for the first time, touched Lydia's hand. The contact was electric. The wife and the mistress. No, Jordan said firmly. You are not going to prison. Because you are going to help me bury him. Lydia looked up, mascara running down her cheeks. How? Arthur Penhaligon has prepared an immunity deal with the district attorney, Jordan said. If you hand over Jamie's private laptop, the one he keeps in the safe, the one I know you have the code to you walk free, we pin the fraud solely on him. Lydia hesitated. He's the father of my child. He is the man who framed you for a felony, Jordan corrected. And do you really want him raising a son? Do you want your son to become him? Lydia stared into the dark recesses of the library. She thought about the way Jamie had looked at her tonight, not with love, but with possession. The code is 0522, Lydia whispered. His birthday? I know, Jordan said dryly. It used to be mine. Lydia laughed, a wet, choked sound. He's pathetic, isn't he? Entirely, Jordan said. Now, drink your tea. We have a DA to call. The next morning, the narrative shifted again, but this time, it wasn't a gossip column. It was the Wall Street Journal. Breaking news. Jamie Sterling, indicted for wire fraud and embezzlement. The footage of Jamie being led out of the Jersey City condo, in handcuffs, was played on every screen in Times Square. He looked disheveled, shouting at the cameras, blaming the deep state and his jealous ex-wife. But the nail in the coffin wasn't Jordan. It was the press conference, held an hour later. Lydia Banks stood at the podium. She wasn't crying. She looked fierce. Standing beside her was Arthur Penhaligon. I was manipulated by a predator, Lydia told the press. Jamie Sterling used me, just like he used his investors. I am cooperating fully with the authorities to ensure justice is done. Jordan watched from her office. She took a sip of her coffee. Phase 3 complete, she murmured. But there was one final twist left. The Blackwood Trust had a rule about heirs, and Jordan had just discovered something in Jamie's seized files, something that changed the history of her own family. The phone rang. It was Judge Harrison. Jordan, the judge said, his voice grave. We opened Jamie's safe deposit box with the warrant. You need to come down here. It's about your father. Jordan frowned. Her father had died 20 years ago. What about him? Jamie didn't just marry you for a quiet life, Jordan, the judge said. He knew. He knew who you were before he met you in that library. And he has a document here. A will. A suppression of a will. Jordan's blood ran cold. I'm on my way. The office of Judge Harrison was a sanctuary of old-world power, mahogany walls, leather-bound books, and the scent of pipe tobacco and dust. But for Jordan, the air in the room felt suddenly thin, as if the oxygen had been sucked out by the object sitting on the heavy oak desk. It was a metal safety deposit box, rusted at the hinges, pulled from the depths of a secure vault that Jamie had maintained under a false name. Judge Harrison, usually a man of stoic composure, looked pale as he slid a single document toward Jordan. "We executed the warrant on Jamie's hidden assets this morning," the judge said, his voice low and grave. "We expected to find offshore bank accounts, or perhaps deeds to shell companies. We didn't expect to find this." Jordan reached out, her fingers trembling slightly. The document was old. The paper had yellowed with age, and the typewriter ink was faded to a dull gray. But the letterhead was stark and unmistakable. Blackwood Industries, Office of the Chairman. And the signature at the bottom, signed in aggressive, bold blue ink, stopped her heart. William Blackwood. Her father. "This is dated 15 years ago," Jordan whispered, her thumb tracing the familiar signature. "7 years before I even met Jamie." "Read it, Jordan," the judge urged gently. Jordan lifted the paper. The words were not just a business correspondence. They were a condemnation. "Mr. Sterling, this letter serves as formal notice of your immediate termination from the Riverfront Development Project. Your proposal to use substandard steel reinforcement in the foundation, an action that would save 15% in costs while endangering the lives of thousands, is not merely negligence, it is criminal. You are hereby blacklisted. I have personally contacted every major architectural firm in New York, Chicago, and London. As long as I draw breath, you will never build so much as a garden shed in this city. If you attempt to contact me, my board, or my daughter to plead your case, I will hand these evidence files directly to the district attorney. You are a fraud, Mr. Sterling, and I will ensure you remain one. Sincerely, William Blackwood." The room spun. Jordan dropped the letter. It fluttered to the desk like a dying bird. The narrative of her life, the story she had believed for 7 years, shattered. He knew, Jordan breathed, the realization cold and sharp as a knife. He knew who I was. She thought back to the library in Chicago, the chance meeting. She had been 27, grieving her father's sudden heart attack, hiding from the world in the archives. Jamie had spilled his coffee on her book. He had been so charming, so apologetic. He had told her he was a struggling architect with a vision, and she was the only one who understood him. "It wasn't fate," Jordan said, her voice rising with a mix of horror and fury. "It was a hunt. He was starving, Jordan," Judge Harrison explained. "Your father had destroyed his career. Jamie was unemployable. Then, William died. And suddenly, the only thing standing between Jamie and the resurrection of his career was a grieving daughter who didn't know her own power. He married me to silence me," Jordan realized, tears of rage pricking her eyes. "The Riverfront Project, that's where he's building the spire. He needed the rights to that land, but he couldn't get them while my father was alive, and he couldn't risk me looking at the old files." "Precisely," the judge nodded. "He married you to neutralize you. He spent 7 years convincing you that you were small, that you were boring, that you were invisible. Because if you ever woke up, if you ever looked at the paperwork, you would have seen that he was the villain in your father's story." Jordan stood up. She walked to the window, looking out at the skyline her family had helped build. The grief was gone. The sadness was gone. In their place was something colder, harder, and infinitely more dangerous. "He didn't just steal my money, Judge," Jordan said softly. "He stole 7 years of my life. He made me a prisoner in my own mind." She turned back, her eyes burning with a dark fire. "Where is he?" Rikers Island was a stark contrast to the glittering ballrooms of Manhattan. The air smelled of industrial cleaner and stale sweat. The fluorescent lights buzzed with a headache-inducing hum. Jordan walked down the long corridor, toward the visitation rooms. She was no longer wearing the red dress. She wore a sharp, tailored black suit that cost more than Jamie's bail. Her heels clicked against the concrete floor, a rhythmic countdown to judgment. Jamie Sterling sat on the other side of the thick plexiglass. He looked ruined. The golden boy of New York architecture was gone. In his place was a man who hadn't slept in days. His hair was greasy, his face unshaven, and he wore a drab orange jumpsuit that hung loosely on his frame. When he saw Jordan, a spark of his old arrogance flared up. He picked up the receiver, a desperate smile stretching across his face. "Jordan," he breathed. "Thank God. I knew you'd come. I knew you wouldn't leave me in this hellhole." Jordan picked up the phone. She sat down slowly, her posture regal. She didn't say a word. She just watched him. "Look, I've been thinking," Jamie rushed on, his eyes darting around nervously. "This has all gone too far. The press, the police, it's a misunderstanding. We can fix this. You drop the charges, tell them it was a marital dispute, a misunderstanding about the accounts, and I'll agree to a quiet divorce. I won't ask for half. I'll just take the spire. That's all I want. My legacy." Jordan remained silent. She reached into her bag and pulled out the yellowed letter. She pressed it flat against the glass. Jamie's eyes focused on the paper. Blackwood Industries. He froze. The color drained from his face so completely he looked like a corpse. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "I know, Jamie," Jordan said, her voice calm, amplified by the tinny phone line. "I know about the substandard steel. I know about the blacklist. I know that you didn't marry me for love, or even for money. You married me because you were terrified of me." Jamie stared at the letter, the signature of the man who had ruined him decades ago, staring back. "He was a pompous old fool," Jamie whispered, the mask finally slipping. His face twisted into a sneer of pure, unfiltered hatred. He didn't understand genius. He cared about safety codes and morality. "I had a vision, and he crushed me like a bug." "So you decided to crush his daughter instead," Jordan said. "I had to," Jamie screamed, slamming his fist against the glass. The guards in the corner stepped forward, but Jordan didn't flinch. "You were just there. Sad, lonely, pathetic little Jordan. It was so easy. All I had to do was tell you that you were plain, that you were boring, and you believed it. I molded you. I made you invisible, so I could finally shine. I built you a life, Jordan. Who are you without me?" The question hung in the stagnant air. Jordan leaned forward. Her expression wasn't angry. It was pitiful. "You built nothing, Jamie," she said. "You are a con artist who got lucky. But luck runs out." She folded the letter and put it back in her bag. "I had a meeting with the city planning committee this morning," Jordan continued, her voice conversational, "regarding the Sterling spire." Jamie's eyes bulged. "You can't touch the spire. The foundation is laid. It's my masterpiece." "It's a hazard," Jordan corrected, "and it's on Blackwood land. I canceled the construction permits an hour ago. The crews are dismantling the steel as we speak." "No," Jamie whimpered, sliding down in his chair. "No, you can't." "We aren't building a skyscraper, Jamie," Jordan said mercilessly. "I'm donating the land to the city. It's going to be a public park, a green space for families, a place where people can walk and breathe." She paused, delivering the final blow with precision. "We're calling it the William Blackwood Memorial Park." Jamie let out a sound that was half sob, half scream. His legacy was gone. The building that was supposed to immortalize his name would be replaced by a monument to the man who had fired him. He had spent his life trying to escape William Blackwood's shadow, only to be buried by it. "You're a monster," Jamie shrieked, tears streaming down his face. "I am your husband. I made you." Jordan stood up. She looked at the man writhing in his chair, a small, broken thing trapped in a concrete box of his own making. "You didn't make me, Jamie," she said. "You just woke me up." She turned toward the heavy steel door. "Jordan!" Jamie screamed, pounding on the glass, his voice cracking. "Jordan, come back. Who do you think you are? You're nobody. You're just the invisible wife." Jordan stopped. She looked back over her shoulder, her silhouette framed by the harsh prison lights. She didn't shout. She didn't scream. She simply spoke 3 words, clear enough to cut through the glass, through the lies, and through history. "I am Jordan Blackwood." She walked out, the heavy steel door slamming shut behind her, with a sound like a tomb ceiling, leaving Jamie Sterling alone with the silence. And that is the story of Jordan Blackwood, the woman who proved that the quietest person in the room is often the one holding all the cards. It's a brutal reminder that you should never mistake kindness for weakness, and you should never, ever build your castle on a foundation of lies. Jamie Sterling thought he could erase his wife to hide his past, but in the end, he was the one who faded into nothing. If you enjoyed this story of high-stakes revenge and justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Did you think Jordan's punishment for Jamie was fair, or should she have done something worse? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new story. Until next time, stay safe and watch who you trust.